a total makeover of a system that needed to evolve in order to adapt to the current situation. Many are now innovating in this age and ensuring that people are properly educated, even with the lack of proper information and guidelines. The question is, how do we ensure that this sudden surge of digital education can be fully leveraged upon? And how shall a holistic education pedagogy be created out of this amalgamation of systems? We have seen the issues of the PDPR. We have seen the drawbacks of applying conventional syllabus via PDPR, and some academicians are suggesting that we should cut off certain subjects and focus on the quality of education outcomes rather than the numbers of subjects taught in schools. Technology shall and will be a mainstay, yet human nature and the bond that is created should not be wasted away. We now have two big buckets to fill, and to do that, we need to prioritize what should be done first and what is that we envision as the end goal for our human capital. So today, we want to explore ideas of possible measures from our three well-known, brilliant panelists. Our first panelist, Dr. Hartini Zainuddin, the co-founder of Yayasan Chow. Our second panelist, Associate Professor Dr. Sham Badlishah, or casually known as Tuan Haji Badlishah, not formally known, but casually known as Tuan Haji Badlishah, the Deputy President of IKRAM Malaysia, and our third panelist, Dr. Syafiqah Abd Rahim, our Research Fellow of Majlis Belia Malaysia. Now, to begin with, can we have Dr. Hartini to introduce herself and share with us on her paradigms of work, expertise, and her vision of education? Please, Nato.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you first and foremost to the organizers of the Noor Conference for inviting me here to have my say my piece, and have this platform to be able to discuss a little bit more about the future of our kids moving forward in the educational sector. Briefly, yes, I am the co-founder for Yayasan Chow. I'm also a child activist. Yayasan Chow is a NGO that looks to uphold the rights of all children in Malaysia, especially we work primarily with marginalized children in and around Chow, as well as advocate on national issues affecting children. We also provide services. We have two centers around Chow, one on Jalan Chow itself, one on Tunku Abdul Rahman, and we have a safe house in PJ. My background happens to be education. So I am trained as a teacher, although I've been in nonprofit my whole life. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. But yeah, just briefly in a nutshell, that's my background. So yes, back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato. That actually makes the two of us. My background is also education. Yes. Okay, I was a lecturer. Okay. Now, let's move forward to Tuan Haji Badlishah, the Deputy President of IKRAM. Okay, he's also, I think Tuan Haji Badlishah is also a lecturer in UPM, if I'm not mistaken. What? Okay, please, Tuan Haji.
Yeah, okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa bihi nasta'in. Thank you, Moderator, Puan, Nurul, Izatee, and also my fellow panelists, Dr. Hartini and Dr. Syafiqah, and also to the audience in the breakout room and also to the public at large. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good afternoon. Now, my background also was in education. I was a lecturer in UPM, and now I have retired from lecturing, but nonetheless, I'm still involved to a certain extent in some of the education programs within. Sometimes they invited me to give lectures in UPM and so on. Now I'm the Deputy President of IKRAM as well as the Chairman of Gabungan Bertindak Malaysia. So I will try to talk on these two organizations and and correlate it to the education part. Now in IKRAM, we have an education portfolio, and we have to date 54 schools That means including primary schools, secondary schools. We do not have yet a tertiary college, but just primary and secondary schools, we have to date about 54. That's not including the tadika, the nurseries and so on. Okay? So we are very much involved in shaping one of the active actors in the education sector in Malaysia since the 1980s. Some of our schools have been set up for more than 30 years. We have had graduates from our schools going on to become, doctors, engineers, lawyers, and so on, accountants. So we've had a stream of graduates from the schools entering universities, colleges, and furthering their studies up to PhD level and so on. So we've had an impact on the education landscape in Malaysia. Our schools are known as schools under the brand IKRAM Muslim. So we adopt the national school curriculum, plus we also have our own curriculum of Islamic subjects, we call it Diniyah subjects. So the children learn an integrated curriculum, both from the national curriculum plus curriculum from the Islamic subjects. Okay? So it's integrated curriculum. So we hope to produce all-rounded students who have the God-fearing, God-consciousness in them, the taqwa, as well as also the good character, akhlaq, and then also well versed in the ilm, the knowledge of the world today. This is what we aspire to produce students of this caliber. Now, IKRAM itself aspires to form a Rahmah nation, a Negara Rahmah. Now, some of the people have translated into a nation of mercy, but it does not do justice to the word Rahmah itself. Rahmah is a very all-encompassing word. It does not just mean mercy, but it means nurturing, compassion, love, so many other things. It's a very big word. That's why it's mentioned often in the Quran by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the Rahmah of Allah. And we enter paradise also on the Rahmah of Allah, not because of our deeds, but because of the Rahmah of Allah. And we all, of course, we all dua, pray that we all enter paradise, inshallah. So there are 12 attributes to the Negara Rahmah. I wouldn't go into detail because of the brevity of time and so on, but it's divided into 4 broad categories. 1 is politics and governance. 2 is progressive society. 3 is economic sustainability. 4th is global peace and well-being. Now, one of those attributes is harmonious ethnic and inter-religious relations. So we carried it over into GBM, Gabungan Bertindak Malaysia. I'm the chairman now of Gabungan Bertindak Malaysia, which is a coalition of Muslim and non-Muslim organizations encompassing multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural organizations. There are 27 organizations under us, under GBM. And our aim, or rather our overarching vision is to build a better Malaysia. So we have 15 elements of a charter that have been agreed upon by all the organizations. It includes unity in diversity, education, also includes social inclusion, economic inclusion, and so on. So now on the education part of GBM, we have an external network which we call IPPN, Initiative Pengislahan Pendidikan Nasional. It's an external network where ABIM is also involved. IKRAM, ABIM, and KLS, CAH, a few other, I think about 11 organizations in total, which form the IPPN. And we have produced books on, for example, suggestions towards national higher education blueprint and so on. And we have also, bring forth our opinions on the education system in Malaysia and so on. So basically, the external network is very active in the education sector in Malaysia. So I think I'll leave it at that, Puan moderator, and then we'll give chance for other people to talk also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Haji. Tuan Haji, I like the idea of Negara Rahmah actually. Okay, because it relates to unity unity in education and unity in everything, because it caters to every aspect or every race that we have in Malaysia. Okay, now let's move forward to our Dr. Syafiqah Abd Rahim, our young and dangerous research fellow. Very young. I think. How old are you, Dr. Syafiqah? Dr. Syafiqah, I think you're breaking.
But I'm below 40. I'm 35 this year.
Okay.
Hello.
I think we're about the same age. All right. Okay, Dr. Syafiqah, can you please explain a bit for yourself?
Here now, probably I should talk slower. Yeah, sure. Dr. Hartini and also Haji session as well, and being such a good company to talk about education for the future. And hi everyone here in the Zoom and those who probably watch us live stream as well. Hi, Assalamualaikum. Thanks for coming along. And my name is Syafiqah Abd Rahim. I am a researcher in Malaysian Youth Council under the Malaysian Youth Council, and my research is a transformative agency, and I'm also looking for, especially for those who are involved in youth organizations and activism, a bit of dissent and resistance, transformative agency, like I said just now, collaborative activities. I love to see how young people learn and how they collaborate with activities that organizations. And I'm also interested in looking into the influence of cultural, historical, and political context in Malaysia, obviously, in terms of how youth organizations or how young people in activism like the activities too. And I'm interested in looking into the political economic of youth, activism, citizenship, education, and I hold a PhD in education, and that is what my research is all about from University of Glasgow, United Kingdom. And in Malaysian Youth Council, we are actually focusing as well in informal education, especially for those who are learning in informally, people who join probably youth organization, either it is under MBM or other youth organizations or social based or other NGOs organization as well. They say that this is a space for them to learn something. This is a space where they can act and they can have some hope and work together with other people. And if they just have an idea, they can just pop up their idea and share it with others. So those are the things that we are looking into. And from my point of view, I like what do I mean by transformative agency? So just quoting, formative agency is a nexus of people together creating the world and them also being created in the same process. So in other words, youth activists or young people who involve in any activities, even they are just small activities that we thought, well, I'm just a participant. No, even though you are a participant, you are acknowledging your agency, your power in transforming the world and redefining the world. And at the same time, you realize, well, I'm here to learn. So you realize you also personally transforming at the same time. So those are the lens that we're trying to put in terms of probably orienting our activities and in terms of looking at how young people in Malaysia, I mean, in the way that young people, just some hopeful views of young people in Malaysia. And for the vision for education, I guess I'm more towards looking for more inclusive and equity of either it is formal and informal ones. I think. Thank you. I will give the floor back to you, Puan Izatee. I hope that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Syafiqah. Thank you so much. Girl power. Okay. All right. So now we shall proceed to our first question, which I will pose to Dr. Hartini. Right, Datuk. On the 13th of September, Datuk Sri Rina Harun mentioned that about 4,596 students are now orphans due to COVID-19. Yeah. And I believe that the numbers will keep on rising. My question is, what are the suggested measures from your point of view in ensuring that these orphan students are not left behind, considering that we are still inculcating PDPR as the methodology, and that are we actually ready for face-to-face learning method as we are approaching endemic? Because endemic is not the solution to pandemic, actually. Endemic is actually a continuation of endless pandemic. Okay, please, Neto.
Well, first off, the latest numbers from the different ministries suggest that we only have 138 orphans who have been orphaned by having parents, one or both parents die of COVID, right? And there lies the issue, the fact that we do not have one number, one statistic that actually holds true, and that we have this different numbers being spouted by different agencies at different times. So we honestly don't know what the numbers are and how many orphans do we have at this point in time. That's the issue, number one. Number two, in terms of suggestions and solutions, I think we should, and this is not just me, these are suggestions made by the child protection groups that I belong to and people that I've spoken to, that we should have a task force across three key ministries, KPWKM, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, to look at the impact of COVID-19 on children and to get the correct statistics. If different agencies can't coordinate and even come up with one number, we're asking them to do an insurmountable challenge in terms of trying to come up with a strategy that runs across all three ministries. So let these three ministries, first of all, I think, form a task force, get on the same page, align their goals and objectives, get the numbers right, and then start looking into how do we support the children in crisis, right? So, you know, we have a Child's Rights Coalition group that we started, and they've already been working on the different sectors, the different pillars that is needed to address the issue of supporting children, like children, orphans during COVID-19 as well, or orphans made, children made orphans by COVID-19. We need to know what the numbers are. We need to know who has lost one or both parents. We need to know if they're quarantined alone at home. We know that there are cases of children quarantined alone at home. How many? Where are they? Whether the children who are quarantined are negative or positive. We don't know these things. What exactly are the needs? Do they have access to online education? Do they have access to food? Who's watching them? Who's taking care of them? Are they left at hospitals? Are they in nurseries? We have no idea. So like I said, to address all these issues, these three ministries, first of all, need to align their priorities and their objectives and goals, find out who these children are, where they are, then we can decide how to help. Then also, you know, it's not just during, you know, the lockdown and during quarantine as well. What happens after? Do we have to set up alternative childcare community centers? Do we have to set up alternative childcare for these children? What kind of alternative childcare? Is it going to be short term? Is it going to be medium term? Is it going to be long term? And so there's so many things we don't have. I mean, I can go on in terms of what we need to do and what the challenges are, but the truth of the matter is our child protection system is broken. That's number one. Number two, there is no coordination. I'll just be frank. We have no coordination between Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, KPWKM, right? Our foster system, even if we were to set up a foster system, is not working very well. And then on top of which, we need to look at the long-term effect of the impact on these children. You know, what happens to children under 6 years old? What happens to the children what about their mental health? What about social, emotional, physical, cognitive development? It's been affected during the last 2 years, never mind the fact that they've lost one or both parents. So I think what needs to happen is either these three ministries lead together with NGOs and community organizations and groups like IKRAM and ABIM and all supporting them, collecting the correct data, and then just being able to work with, you know, child rights groups, child protection groups, with JKM, etc., to be able to actually address what these issues are. But most of all, and this is something I actually tweeted about this morning, is that we need to make children a priority. Our tendency is to always react to a situation. We never plan, we never think. And this is what happens. Then we scramble, right? We can't even get the numbers right. So is it 138? Is it 4,448? What's the numbers? Where are they? So I'll just stop at that for now.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Thank you. I'm actually amazed on how you can actually gather all the points all together within about 2 to 3 minutes.
I talk fast. I talk very fast, sorry.
Yes, I'm glad I'm wearing bulletproof tudung. Okay, all right. Now, but it's true. Actually, COVID-19 impacts children worse than adults. Yeah?
Very
It
much
impacts
so.
children worse than adults. Okay, especially when you see that not all children actually are getting the right attention to education, the right access to education when it comes to PDPR. Most children are, I think, are quite left behind. And yes, it's true that the coordination is not there. Then it's different from one another. The numbers are different from one another.
I can add to that as well, right? Malaysia has had far more school closures than any other country in the world, yeah. And in relation to the resources that we have available to us, I mean, the numbers in terms of the numbers of where Malaysia is and where the rest of the country is, I'll give you an idea, right? So Malaysia has closed 49 weeks of school, as 37 full closure, 11 partial closure, compared to Singapore that only has closed for 14 weeks and only 3 weeks for full closure. UK had 27, 16 were full closure, 11 were partial, and the global average is 18 weeks full closure, 16 weeks partial closure. Malaysia closed 49 weeks. Just to think about that. And I'll stop there.
49 weeks. And
49 weeks.
Yes, 49 weeks, and that means about 49 weeks of PDPR as well. Yeah. Okay, yep. Not even partial. Okay, all right. So I think we get back to that later. Okay, now the next question. The next question to Tuan Haji Badlishah. How do Islam perceive education, and how does education in Malaysia from the perspective of ad-Din shall be judged towards strengthening the integrity, unity and good moral values, especially in facing pandemic challenges? Please, Tuan Haji.
Okay, I think can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Thank you, Puan Moderator. It's just a very interesting question. I cannot talk as fast as Dr. Hartini, but I will try to answer the question within the time allocated. Now, actually, I believe in the philosophy of education as being memanusiakan manusia, to humanize the humans. Because you see, we need to build the character, the akhlaq, the noble values or the noble character of a person. Now that's the real truth of education actually, and this is in line with if we look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he said that about his mission, why he was sent to this earth. Of course, among other things, he mentioned that innama bu'ithtu liutammima salihal akhlaq. This is one of the narration. There's also another narration, makarim al akhlaq. But what it means is that verily I've been sent to perfect human character, akhlaq. to perfect human character. So that means this is one of the mission of the Rasul, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, in order to fulfill this mission, he ingrained among the Muslim Ummah the concept of taqwa, God-fearing and God-consciousness. So that means whatever, so that the people will feel that the Muslim Ummah, and also, of course, to the human population at large, is that whatever we do, we are accountable for it. Eventually, we're going to be accountable for it, especially in the day of judgment. We'll be called to account for everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we, how do we run our life and so on in this world. So they'll be all called into account. So that humanization of humans, molding them into good characters, noble characters, people who have values, who own up or possess good values and espouse these values as well, not just within themselves, not just internalizing the values, but also externalizing the values in how they interact with the society and so on. I mean, like for example, Dr Hartini has done a very great job of this Yayasan Chow in helping orphans, helping the less privileged people. Now, this is the service. This is the service that we have to provide to the society, and this is the result of being inculcated with noble values, noble character, where we sought to help people. We always think of helping people. Whatever we do, whether we have money or we don't have money, we try to help people. Those are part of the noble values. So that's why the good character needs to be exemplified. That's why when you look at the Quran as well, Allah Ta'ala mentioned laqad kana lakum fi rasulillahi uswatun hasanah. That means in the life or in the person of the Prophet Muhammad SAW is uswatun hasanah, a good example. So that means we need to show good examples. It's not just having in theory, about ingraining noble values and so on, but also internalizing them and exhibiting them as a character of a person. So that is very important in education. So from the Ad-Din point of view, this is one of the most I think the philosophy of humanizing the humans, and also the philosophy of building the character. I think that's one of the cornerstones of education from the Islamic point of view. And if you look at the history of Islamic education, Islamic curriculums 1,000 years ago, always the building of the akhlaq, the building of the character has been one of the foundations of the Islamic education system. I mean, building the moral character, having moral responsibilities. That means you are, so that you become person of integrity. You are in yourself and also outside in your interaction and so on. So that means you don't do bribery. You don't give bribery. You don't accept bribes as well. Because this is also in difference to the teachings of in aligning to the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby in the hadith is mentioned that Allah melaknat, Allah curse upon those who give bribes and also accept bribes. So that means if we really embody that, within our character, then there should be no rasuah in a Malay majority country or in a Muslim country. But unfortunately, it still happens because of the temptations of the world, and of course the whispering of the shaitan and so on. So, and also maybe the character building is still not sufficient, and so on and so forth. So that means we need to build that kind of character. Now, but Islamic education is not just about building character. I have to mention this as well. It is also integrated with the knowledge of the world, because we have to remember that Islam once had its golden age from 800 AD to 1200 AD, about 400 years of Islam leading the research and technology, the science and technology of the world at that time. I've had the opportunity to visit Spain in 2009, about 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. And I was taken to one of the excavations in Spain. Spain once was the Cordoba. Cordoba was once the seat of power, Granada and so on. It had a Muslim caliphate in Spain at one time. Now I was brought to one excavation site. It's called Madinatul Noor. It's the city of light. You know that when they excavated that city, this city was probably built in the 1000 AD or something like that, about 1000 years ago. They found that there was a toilet which had a flushing toilet. One of the first examples in the world of a flushing toilet. Imagine, man, at that time, more than 1000 years ago, the Muslims had already invented the flushing toilet. So that was the golden age, whereby Muslims had contributed so much to science and technology. And of course, during that time, all those the Muslim scholars of science and technology had invented the algebra and so on, so many optics, Khawarizmi and so on. So therefore, Islam also actually encourages people to do research, to learn, to investigate, to discover, to contribute to the worldly knowledge of science and technology and arts and social sciences and so on. That's also ingrained within the Islamic faith or the Islamic worldview. So therefore, I think an education system from the ad-din point of view, it must build on the characters, the noble characters, as well as also encouraging the people to learn and to discover and to research, and to contribute to the advancement of technology, science and technology, wherever they may be. So I think that's my take on this one. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Tuan Haji. That's very interesting, actually. That education is not just about building character, but the integration of worldly knowledge. Okay, that is the education from the Islamic point of view. But during pandemic, because it seems that our students are not allowed to have the face-to-face interaction, and they are not allowed to actually build their social skills outside, because they can only have PDPR session, they can only have, they are dependable towards digital learning. Okay, so how can we actually realize the concept of education through the Islamic point of view, through the digital learning?
Okay, thank you. I think this is also in line with the question from Abdul.
Yes, Abdul.
From Brunei. Yes.
From Brunei, exactly.
That's right. It's a very good question, actually. Of course, you see, human beings are created by Allah to be social beings. We cannot isolate ourselves from a community or from society. We need to interact. We need to get about. We need to talk to people. We need to, socialize with people. We need to have events with people and so on, because we are social beings. We cannot live in isolation from the world. But unfortunately, within the pandemic context, right now, because we are in this situation whereby we have, like Dr. Hartini mentioned just now, unfortunately, we have 49 weeks, full closure. The school system in Malaysia, there's probably the longest, I think, in the world, if I'm not mistaken, in the world is the longest full closure. 49 weeks is almost 1 year, 1 year is 52 weeks, give or take. So that means our children have not had schooling for nearly a year. Now that's why the term lost generation was coined, and to describe this incompatibility, or rather inconsistency with the being able to interact with each other, where the enrichment of the character, enrichment of the knowledge also comes from the social interaction and so on. But unfortunately, this does not happen during the pandemic context. So now what happens is that the children are forced to go to PDPR, and then they have got this digital learning and so on, but only so much can be done. Only so much can be done within the PDPR sessions and so on. Sometimes I've heard stories, because I have cousins, or I have nieces who are teachers and so on. So they tell me they have problems, to make sure that those students are there in the classroom. Betul kada ni, sometimes they call out their name, but he or she is not there kan. Tak ada pun, it's just dia punya apa nama avatar ataupun just the picture is there, but he or she is not there because they are doing something else. So unfortunately, we have got into this situation. So what's the best then alternative? So that means within the house, there are parents. Okay. So that means now it is the job of the parents to supervise their children, and then when we say about the building of moral character and also noble values just now, so it means now the responsibility, the onus of responsibility now falls upon the parents' shoulders. So because parents also make up actually when we talk about education, there is a formal education and also informal education. Formal education is what we go through schools, what we go through colleges and so on. But informal education also has got a very big effect. That's where education from the parents, from the community, from the icons, from the examples set by society and so on. And this also builds the worldview of the children, seeing all these things together. So the parents now have got a bigger responsibility to make sure that their children practice or embody these noble values. So the parents themselves got to become good examples. So the parents cannot just leave the responsibility of molding their children to the teachers. They've got to take, now with the pandemic context, the onus of responsibility now falls on their shoulders a lot more than the teachers. So they've got to take the extra they have to do the extra mile, the extra part, extra bit to help their children along with this education. That means inculcating in them the good values. Now they've got more quality time with the children because the parents also are working from home. So that means make use of that quality time, because normally you don't have that kind of time with your children. You are busy working, your children is going to school, then you come back at 5 p.m. in the evening. You only have maybe a few hours, only 2 to 3 hours window with your children before they go back to sleep, and then they wake up early morning tomorrow to go to school again. So now you've got that window of opportunity between you and your children. Use that quality time. Use it to make sure that you can mold your children to embody these noble values. So that means you have to be the leader. You have to show that example. And then of course, just now moderator mentioned about these values also is interconnected with unity and so on within society. So it's very true. When you have these noble values of wanting to give, to be of benefit to society, then that would lead to the rahmah among the society and also to the unity. Because I remember another hadith of Rasulullah SAW that mentioned the best among you, orang yang paling bermanfaat, those who give most benefit to the public. Like what Dr Hartini is doing, memang banyak manfaat lah kepada masyarakat. Superb job. I hope she gets all the pahala and all the ajar yang baik-baik ni daripada Allah. So that means this is where the wanting to give back to society, wanting to be the most beneficial to society, that will build the relationship between society, create the unity, create the building the bridges within society, because we have to help no matter whether they're Muslim, whether he or she is Muslim or non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. We have to help them, because they're also human beings. After all, they're all sons of Adam. They're all human sons of Adam. They are our, to a certain extent, our sort of the brotherhood of humanity lah. They are our brothers, sisters as well. If we look at them as we have one father, coming from one father, itu Nabi Adam, Prophet Adam. So we are brothers and sisters in that sense. So therefore, this kind of building up of this mindset, the worldview, that will help to build the society. Over to you, moderator.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Haji. It's very interesting actually, because we actually share about the same view. I always actually tell my son and actually his friends and other students, my former students before, that in order for you to call yourself a successful person, you need to be able to contribute back to the society, and how far that you have done to actually help others to be successful as well. Okay, all right, thank you so much. Now, shall we move forward to Dr. Syafiqah? All right, Dr. Syafiqah, I've read about you and your course on, on how you actually work to help the youths. Okay, now, youths are part of our human capital agenda for the future. We aim to prepare a better world for them, and in fact, we put double effort in ensuring youths would soon be transforming into better adults, responsible, all IQ, EQ, and SQ equipped. But that was before pandemic. Do you think pandemic changed our education landscape? And will the effort be hampered? How does the pandemic affect the effort in developing a well-natured and nurtured youth? Okay, over to you, Dr. Syafiqah.
To Puan Dr. Hartini as well for, opening up a whole field to share as well my opinion in terms of whether or not pandemic changed. Obviously, pandemic changed our education landscape, and that those effects were real to the teachers, to parents, to students. And I'm sorry that I couldn't turn on my camera because my internet connection is unstable, and I apologize for that. Building and transforming young people does not stop there. So like I said, I mentioned earlier about transformative agency and how it changes the we see the world as well. That shows enough agentic power change the world. While doing so, everything online, we create more than ever than before. So those actually shows that how conflicts or contradictions or issues of even pandemics can lead to spaces for young people as well as all intergenerational to adapt to changes. And while the effort of developing and transforming young people has been done before, I think before we focus more on face-to-face engagement, and we work together closely then. But now what Nurul is the emotion. Like now, this is an example where you cannot see my face speaking because of my internet connection, but we kind of missing that sense of human there. We kind of missing those emotion aspects. But through my research and through the work that I've been done with young people, either they are in youth organizations, inside NBM, moral aspects to move forward and to change society. Of motivation, their motives and motivations is for good cause.
Dr. Syafiqah, are you still there?
It is an ultimate intention. So those who are the Malay Muslims, it is also allowed to assume that intention. Can you still hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're back. Okay.
Okay, but where do I stop just now? What is the last?
At the motivation.
Oh, at the motivation. So most were saying, thank you to Puan Izatee.
Okay.
And most were saying that their intention that motivates them to change the world or to even contribute in their society is that intention to do good, the sense of responsibility, the sense of belonging, and also the sense of togetherness. So I guess those also incorporate how Malaysian unique way of culture and tradition and norms are embedded in those actions. So we are saying that even though we bring this online, even though it is after pandemic, it will not dampen down. It might slow down, but it will not stop that process of transforming young people. I guess what we can see throughout the pandemic, young people are trying to reach out more, and the effort that were brought in by teachers, by educators, by policymakers, for example, by NGOs, by individual person were tremendously huge, and we have to identify that. So pandemic somehow accelerate the way we move and the way we change the education landscape as well. But by saying that, even though we will move forward to technology, I guess we can say that technology is a tool, but behind those technology, behind those digital innovation is human. And I guess we have to go back to the human-centric motions of it. I think, yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Syafiqah. But it's very interesting. We have lost the human interaction, and that affects us a lot, actually. And sometimes I wonder, when we actually return back to our normal life as before, so how would it be?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow maybe it would be awkward to have that human interaction back, actually, because we are so used to 2 years of losing the human interaction there. Okay.
True, I agree with you. And of course, right now we can mute and unmute ourselves. But when it comes to physical interaction, again, how are we going to do that? So that goes the transformative within us, the agency, the transformative agency within us as a Khalifah to even adopt with those changes. And by adopting to those changes, we are creating new things. And I guess those are what brilliance with being human.
True, exactly. Okay, now let's get back to the issue of 49 weeks of full school closure just now, Dr. Hartini. So how far do you think our PDPR caters to the needs of all students after this full closure of 49 weeks of school session?
Well, first off, we never cater to the needs of all children in Malaysia that needs education. I work with marginalized groups of children. We know very well, even prior to the pandemic, that children were missing out of schools. We know refugees were not allowed in government schools. We know that children in prisons, children in detention centers, stateless children, and those having no access to online education or the internet never actually had were part of the formal educational system or traditional school systems that we're talking about. The assumption then and the assumption now is that education is about a one-size-fit-all type of curriculum and one teaching method. And we know that's not true. We know that was not true before, and we know it's not true now. So if we were to go back to the moral compass or the religious compass about values and principles in religion, we go back to the basic. Education is ensuring that children are empowered, children work towards or find or create alternative educational paths and tracks to be resilient, to be productive citizens, to be productive people, to ensure that they take care of themselves and that they can take care of their families, right? So we go back to basics. Yayasan Chowkit, 30% of our kids are marginalized kids, 70% are Malaysian poor who never fit in really into the current educational system, right? So we go from that basis, we have to look at creative and innovative ways of being able to educate children. Online education isn't the end all be all. Children never had it in the beginning, or children had it, now they don't, right? So we need to also, I think this is an opportunity for children and teachers and educators and those involved in education to look at creating and enhancing and supporting alternative educational tracks. So we talk about different pedagogies, for example, right? What kind of creative and innovative teaching methods do we do where children can do, their own inquiry-based instructional plans, for example, right? Or modules. We talk about visualization. We talk about cooperative learning. Kids in one PPR flat can work amongst themselves, trying to figure out ways to be able to communicate. Even if they can't leave the building, they can definitely walk to each other's rooms. Bearing in mind social distancing and making sure that they're vaccinated or keeping their distance. Right. We can talk about inquiry-based instruction. We can look at differentiation. We can talk about technology in the classroom. But the truth of the matter is, most children have parents with one handphone. All my kids borrow their parents' handphone at some point in time during the day. So even if it is, instructional design or instructional classrooms for 1 hour a day, they will arrange with their parents to be able to get hold of that phone during that 1 hour. So there are different ways of adapting. There's behavioral management, there's professional development. When I talk about kids teachers coming up with portfolios and I can't think of the word right now, it's sort of slipped my mind, but project-based examples. There are different ways of being able to do it and get graded and assessed. There are different ways of encouraging children. It doesn't have to be online. Going out and working on a farm, helping your parents grow vegetables because you've run out of food is also education. Education does not belong in just a traditional four-wall and a roof over your head. Education happens all the time. So I think there are ways in which teachers, educators, NGOs, parents, communities can provide different platforms for children to learn during this hard time. And when it goes back, trust me, children are resilient, children are adaptable, they will find a way to go back to the normal. Although, really, frankly speaking, I don't think normal is going to happen again. I think the pandemic is here to stay, and we've had to adapt and resilient, and normal is not going to be normal anymore. So I think, the idea that online education is the only way to educate children and that traditional formal schools are the only way to educate children, for me, is wrong. Maybe because I work mostly with marginalized children, but maybe because I think it's time. I think this is an opportunity for us to base our educational systems and modules and lessons around values and principles and working on what's out there as well. And this is our opportunity to adapt. It's not dire per se. I think there are ways for us to be able to sort of play on and use this opportunity to do better by all children, not just some. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. I agree. There's no way that we can actually cater to all the needs of the students, so all the needs of the children. But we can provide every child the access to education, even if it means outside the traditional classrooms.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. That's very insightful. All right, now, can we proceed to Tuan Haji Badlishah on the next question? From your point of view, Tuan Haji, how is it possible for us to have just one type of national school? Because I read about Tuan Haji's research, Tuan Haji's speech before, that he focuses on about unity through education, unity through unity through everything that we have in daily lives. Okay, so Tuan Haji, is it possible for us to have just one type of national school?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Mm-hmm. Now, before I go on to answer the question, I would like to say that I totally agree with what Dr. Hartini has mentioned just now. The being creative and also innovative education, being creative and innovative in our educational tracks. How do we build up the generation? How do we instill those values and principles among the children and so on? Yeah, this is what we have to do now. This pandemic situation forces us to think beyond the normal means. Actually, it's a sort of a rahmah also from Allah, and sort of if we take it positively, it is also hikmah. It's a wisdom also from Allah that he created this pandemic so that people are forced to think beyond their the normal boundaries, how to be creative, how to be innovative, this inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, and so on. I think I was a university lecturer at one time. Yeah, we tried to do this problem-based learning, project-based learning, experiential learning to be inculcated among the university students. That means sometimes we would just take them out of the lecture hall. Normally, we do our lectures in the lecture hall. So 80 or 100 students will be crammed into the lecture hall and listening to one person speaking. But of course, they are so interactive discussion at the same time. But once in a while, taking them out of the lecture hall and look at the birds and the trees and the environment as a whole. So that's also another way of bringing them to I was in the food faculty last time, bringing them to the food factories, looking at how the food production process and how the interaction between the staff and the personnel in the food factory in producing a food, what it takes to produce a food. It takes not just the machines, but also takes just now Dr. Syafiqah mentioned, behind all this technology are human beings. So it's very true. That means is that human interaction together with the help and support of the machines that produce the food. And that one is also a very interesting nexus that also builds around values and principles as well. If you do not have the correct value and principle, you don't care what sort of quality of food you produce. But if you have the right values and principle, you will care that this food product that you produce must comply with the specifications. If it is halal specification, then halal. If it is good manufacturing practice, then GMP specifications. If it is the whole gamut of the manufacturing practice, then it must comply with all the standards, the international standards, local standards, and then you can produce a very good defined quality product. That needs also values and principles. If you don't build it around that, then people don't care. Whatever food product that come out, it doesn't comply to any specifications. So right now, back to the question. Now this question of whether we can have one national school for all. Now history, it's also go back to history to Puan Izatee. We have a social contract last time, when we had our independence. So the leaders of past accede to the request that vernacular schools be set up and so on to cater for the Chinese culture. And I think it's okay because anyway, mother language is also enshrined within the UN Charter and so on to be taught in your mother language. It's part of the universal human rights of human beings. So it's okay. I think let's not squabble over that. Let's not argue over whether vernacular schools should stay or should be eradicated or should be dismissed and so on. That will lead to nowhere. That kind of argument, that kind of contestation will lead to nowhere. It will just lead only to further divide between the races and between the different communities in Malaysia. We have to respect each other. So whatever is there is already there. I think the main question should be, now that we have these national schools, the vernacular schools, and don't forget we also have these Islamic schools, the Tahfiz schools. This is also all part of the education landscape now. So that means if you run down the vernacular schools, that means you're also running down the sort of freedom given for us to be able to build our schools customized to the needs of the community. I'm sure Dr. Hartini also have got, her marginalized kids probably have got their own schools as well. So that means, so let's not talk about all these different strands of schools and so on, but let's talk how do we, within these various strands of schools, how do we inculcate that spirit of unity, the spirit of togetherness, the spirit of belonging to a nation, belonging to a society, So this one have got a lot to do with the way we teach our children. So of course, among the subjects that have been touted as quite critical in building this mindset or nation building mindset and so on is the history. history textbooks. I think we all know there've been quite a furor created recently that our history textbooks only cater to a certain community only, the sumbangan ataupun the contribution only of a certain community, but does not highlight the contribution of other communities as well in the building of Malaysia as a nation that we know now. So I think we need to do justice to the curriculum. Curriculum is one thing. That means the history lessons or civic lessons or the society lessons that we give to the children needs to be streamlined so that we recognize and respect the contribution of all the communities in Malaysia towards creating the history of Malaysia and also towards creating Malaysia to what it is right now. That one, I think we need to do justice to that. Now, the other thing, of course, is in creating that interaction between the various strands of schools that we have now. And there was this idea of vision schools dulu, if you remember. I think that was some time ago, whereby they are all parked in one compound, and then you can sort of have this interaction among them. But somehow it doesn't really take off. But I think one of the things that need to be emphasized also is that within these various strands of schools, there needs to be interaction on various levels. Like just now, this sort of project-based learning, it can be also be done between different strands of schools. For example, national schools and vernacular schools coming together to do a certain project. The children coming together a certain project. Islamic schools and also national schools and vernacular schools also come together for a certain, say, a Malaysia Day project ataupun something like building the Malaysian identity or something like that. This sort of, ABIM I know does this muhibah camps. Recently they had one muhibah camp. It's a very good idea, whereby you try to get together everybody, people from different strands of schools together, come together, eat together and learn together, collaborate together, cooperating together, for a certain common themes, common goals, common objectives. This is great. These are all great ideas which can be hopefully be implemented within our educational landscape, and so that we can create. The main thing is to create that interaction too. Unfortunately now, because of our present circumstances and so on, we don't live together like we used to do. Now our residential housing estates are mainly either one community based, and then the other housing estate also another community based, and so on. We tend to divide ourselves among the housing estates, and then of course in other parts as well, whereby we have our mosque, we have our surau, but yet it's not inviting to the non-Muslims to come to the surau and the mosque, because some people say that we cannot have dirty people to enter. What do you mean? I don't know how come the dirty word comes there. I'm not so sure how it came about, But actually, these are things which need to be broken down. We have to break down the barriers that somehow, divides between the various communities. We have to have platforms to discuss racial prejudices, for example. We have to have platforms to discuss how we can contribute together to help the marginalized people, to help the underprivileged, to help the downtrodden, to help the less the needy, and so on. These are all things which can be done together. I know that IKRAM and ABIM has been together with Suchi. There was one project that we had together recently on raising funds for COVID-19 equipment, for equipment to combat COVID-19 in hospitals. We managed to raise about 15 million ringgit, which is not quite a good outcome within various Muslim and non-Muslim organizations coming together, raise funds for the hospitals, for the frontliners. Imagine that you can come together to do beneficial projects like this. So that means, why can't the children come together, within all these various strands of schools and make a project to help Malaysia build the Malaysian identity? And so I think it can be done. It needs the political will. It needs the will among the NGOs and so on to come together to do this. Basically, it's an all-of-nation approach. All-of-nation approach to inculcate the spirit of unity, within the communities, because we have diversity, and this diversity is a strength. strength to provide the unity. I had addressed one of the NGO meetings prior to this. I told them that Malaysia, we are fortunate to have the Muslim civilization, we have the Chinese civilization, we have the Indian civilization. Imagine if we can harness the potential of all these civilizations, wouldn't Malaysia be a great country? I put the question to those NGO leaders and so on, because we all have our own strength, diversity of strength within our communities. And if we can harness this potential, put all these people together, one cauldron, satu bekas, satu kuali lah to put it that way, and then build together that cohesiveness and also the collaborativeness to build a great nation. I think we can do it. It just needs that will. Over to you again.
Okay. Thank you, Tuan Haji. That's very beautiful. I still remember the other day we had a forum together whereby you defined the term ummah. That the term ummah is actually not meant that the Muslim, but non-Muslim altogether as one ummah. Okay, I still remember that. Okay, but it's true that education isn't just about access, but also choices. Okay, and as a former educator myself, I believe that what important is the right syllabus that caters unity instead of having just one type of national school or so on, or maybe we eradicate the vernacular schools. But it's not that important to actually argue about the type of school that we have in Malaysia, but the syllabus that actually gather us together, the syllabus that actually binds us together, that promotes unity. That is more important. Okay, now our next question to Dr. Syafiqah. Okay, Dr. Syafiqah.
Yes.
Okay, what is your opinion about such claims which lament about our youth's rudeness, impulsiveness, and lack of social ability, or SQ, and the claim that says that Gen Y and Z are weak and incomparable to those who were born before?
Yeah, thank you.
We have a few comments, please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the questions, and it is very interesting because it resonates all the way from perceptions towards young people, and how their emotions are sometimes irrational or their actions are irrational. So it dated back to even in French Revolution, right? So this was written by Ting. And then it's interesting that how we somehow see young people and older people as a separate entity, while it is not. We are whole as a society. We are here as one community. And those are the things that we have to acknowledge. Well, this is perceptions, and this is also an expectation from society. So Dr. Hartini also mentioned about citizenship before, and how we expect young people to be a good citizen. So what are the definition of good citizen? And Haji Badlishah also covers on the important national policies or subjects that could be included in the curriculum or even outside curriculum, and what are the efforts there. So I guess those are the ways that we somehow directly or indirectly as community, as Malaysians, perceive young people. And those are actually intergenerational perspective. We see people separated from each other while we are all one. We are all one community. And those expectations also embedded cultural roles, collective surveillance, social norms, isn't it? So when we talk about that, what I can see is young people in Malaysia has been actually relating to the element of akal budi. So akal budi here is the middle point between emotions, affection, cognition, and then it situates the person's physical, spiritual, and intellectual aspects in our action. And then the influence of akal budi may have guided the behavior of young people, whether or not they choose to be as an activist or they choose not to be an activist. And when even they wanted to discuss certain issues in public space. So they are aware that well, these things are sensitive and these things are not. And they also choose a space where they can talk about those sensitive issues. So they will choose more private space, not live streamed, very private, close discussion in small groups online. And those are the things
Dr. Syafiqah, I think your line is still breaking.
I think we should take into consideration as well. That those are the polite, like social ability. Where do they learn all this? No.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just saying about the things that somehow that young people learn those things or those behaviors from their society. So we cannot isolate young people from their society. I'm not saying that it's separated, it's not separated, but what I'm trying to say that whatever the behavior within the society will also influence the behavior of young people. And that's what we're trying to break. That's where we have pauses in between those changes. So for example, if we see the pandemic as a sort of pause to change, or a sort of well, let us take time to reflect on what can we do further. And I think that would be great. For example, like Haji Badlishah just now mentioned, what are the things that we can do to move forward in terms of citizenship education and in terms of including more probably moral, ethical part in education, right? So I think this is the right time for us to continue and move forward with different approach. Dr. Hartini mentioned just now about creative approach. So we in MBM would like to try to experiment a bit, because we are not sure, right, from whatever workshops we hold, whether or not it is doable or whether or not we reach the aim. But what we want to produce here is a safe space for young people to learn from each other, because what we believe is it's not just one person imparting knowledge to another, but it is also rebuilding knowledge together. So each and every one of us is an intellectual of its own. And then when we combine together, when we work together, like Haji Badlishah mentioned just now about we have the brilliance and the intelligence from different cultures, from Muslim Malay cultures, from the traditional Nusantara culture, from other Chinese brilliance and intelligence, and other ethnics as well. And then I hope that I didn't miss out any, but yeah, within the time constraint, that's all that I could mention. But yes, if we could work together and then see how we could incorporate those intelligence together and not separating it from one another, that would be such a brilliant move. And I think that would be my take on such claims.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Syafiqah. That's very interesting, okay, to hold actually workshops for youth, okay, not just the adults, not just those who are about the same age as us, okay, as a way not to isolate young people from the society, because they learn up from the society. Okay, now, because since we have about 3 minutes more, is it possible for us to actually answer a question from the audience? That's one question actually, which is quite interesting, and it might take a few creative ideas in actually to find solution for the question. What about those who have 6 kids in a row of say age 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 and 18 to monitor them in a day? Any experience can be shared. Okay, Tuan Haji Badlishah.
Okay, but the problem is I don't have kids of that age anymore. all my kids have grown up. Actually, my youngest is already 30, in his early 30s. That's my youngest. But I have chuchus lah. I have grandchildren. My eldest grandson is already 12 years old. So I think I would not be in a situation to answer that question very well because I don't have children of that age anymore, and even during these pandemic times and so on, I don't have to cater for children of that age anymore. My chuchus, my grandchildren just come. Even now, they are not able to come also to visit me because you cannot cannot cross the cannot cross the state borders and so on. So sorry, I'm not in that.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can have Dr. Hartini.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Hartini.
My kids are in that bracket. My son is 15, my daughter's 13, but the rest are not with me. I actually just came back from Sabah, looking at marginalized communities, their stateless children and their families, looking at ways to access food, but also looking at ways to access health and education. And when I think of the best ways that which you can work with, if you have 17 children ranging from age from 18 all the way down to 1, is of course to sort of do like have a communal table, a communal space for all the children to sit down and sort of do like a cross between peer mentoring, peer teaching, peer tutoring, and and facilitation by the parents just to check on the elders. I've seen older kids helping their younger brothers and sisters and siblings because they're not in school. Parents then coming back from being outside looking for a job or working in the fields to actually just checking on what the kids are doing, but also trusting and empowering the older children to help the younger children, and vice versa, because the younger children can also help to sort of mentor and keep in check the older kids as well in different ways, not in terms of content. So I think it's an opportunity to do to have this communal teaching thing going on in each home, or to do neighborhood communal peer mentoring types of situations, and then having the parents be facilitators. That's one. In childcare, that's what I see in Sabah. In childcare, what happens is the kids, like I said, in homes or in the same PPR flats, actually collect their homework together and then send it to teachers, or they leave in the place for teachers to come by and pick up. I think there are lots of creative ways in which you can do. One of the ways which I thought was kind of fun and also a way for families to bond was to create curriculums over Netflix. So you can do language training, math training, and stuff, watching movies together, and having discussions about this as well, whether through language or through simple content, pedagogical, approaches to learning math. But the best for Netflix is actually English or logic, or just creative writing, which I think is a lot of fun. But there's lots of ways, like I said, for parents who have 6 children in a row, 10 children in a row, 17 children in a row, for the older ones to help the younger ones, vice versa, and for the parents to be facilitators, or to just do neighborhood groupings kind of checking and tutoring. I mean, I hope that answers your questions, but that's what I saw, and that's the first thing that came to mind when I saw your question. But maybe, Dr. maybe some others have ideas as well.
Hi, can I share a bit? And I agree with what Dr. Hartini mentioned just now about sharing space, sharing responsibility, and communal space as well. And I think I saw some of my friends who are living in a big family's home. Obviously, sometimes they have cousins coming over, and then or cousins staying together with them in grandma's house, and those actually also helps with mothers taking turns to facilitate their children's learning and those kind of things. And I agree with how probably we could bring the modes of gotong royong back in society in education. for example. So it's like learning together. And I know that some of us have worked through volunteers or have even hold free tuitions before. But how are we going to do this after probably these online things has been stopped, or when we get together again physically, or like Dr. Hartini mentioned just now, we might not go back to the old normal, but this is the new normals that we have to adopt. And it is interesting to see how the roles of parents are not only as parents but also as facilitators in educating their children, and how their brothers, sisters, cousins, and sometimes grandmas also help, and grandpas also helps with kids drawing and paintings and those kind of things. And I guess those are actually the elements that are strong in our society, in Malaysia in particular, and that we can tap on further, because we are always open to work together, and those are the areas that we can expand further in terms of education. And I agree with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hartini and Dr. Syafiqah. That is very insightful, because when I was a lecturer myself, I used to have a session for movie watching as well. And we used to have communal space for peer teaching. Actually, it's not all the time that I teach. It's not all the time that I was in front, no. Okay, actually we practice that as well. It works. It works. Okay, all right. I think we should conclude, as we have another session waiting. That's the closing ceremony. Okay, to conclude, there's a saying popular among netizens: pandemic does not break the system, but it exposes the broken system that we have been living all this while. And endemic is not the solution to pandemic, but rather it uses the healthcare system, in which will the education system be made at ease as well. There are, however, few measures that we can consider to ensure that we are upholding the principles of education, in which to produce holistic individuals and to ensure that no one gets left behind. Education for all. The key to effective education solution embracing pandemic and endemic in a multiracial country is always unity. The idea of Negara Rahmah introduced by IKRAM Malaysia through its IKRAM Muslim syllabus is one of the possible solutions which caters to the development of harmonious and holistic individuals. Government agencies need to coordinate to get the exact accurate numbers of orphanage due to COVID-19. The impact of COVID-19 on children are worse than it hits adults. In ensuring that children get the best education, even at home, parents should play the main role in spending time with their children to mold their personality and inculcate good values as part of informal learning. Learn beyond paper qualification. Pandemic is a learning curve for everyone to think beyond our conventional way of educating. We need to be creative and innovative. There's no way we can cater to all the needs of the students, but we can provide every child the access to education, even if it means outside normal boundaries. Okay, so therefore, thank you to our panelists today, Dr. Hartini, Tuan Haji Badlishah, Sham, and also Dr. Syafiqah Abd Rahim. I hope that we all get the benefit of our session for today. And just in case that if anyone wants to tune in for our recordings, you can do so by checking it on Noor Malaysia FB page or waptv FB page. Okay, till then, signing off, and thank you everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikum salam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terima kasih.